Welcome to the Weekend Wrap-Up with Trevor Junt. I'm your host, Trevor Junt. This is Brenden Jin. On today's show, we'll have Brenden Jin, Drew Amburgy, and Danny Flynn. In the show, we talk about all the NFL games that happened in the weekend with a 2-minute timer. So with that being said, let's get started. Before we jump into the first game, let's go to Brenden's social media page. Just follow him at BrendenJ14. He also has a podcast, No Gain Sports. It's growing and it's getting bigger, so go support him on that aspect as well. So Brenden, let's go into your first game.
Yeah, up first I have the Vikings versus the Lions. The Lions got their first win of the season.
Yeah, first up.
I was very happy about that. I've been rooting for them all year. I've watched a good amount of their games, and it's just, something good to see. Honestly, I felt this was one of the most fun games to watch on Sunday. I really enjoyed it. Kirk Cousins, I think, actually played really well, though. He had a great game. He had 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Jared Goff had 296 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception. And I just felt that Jared Goff was more of a game manager throughout the game, except for the final drive, where he actually produced pretty well and actually threw the game-winning touchdown with zeros on the clock. Yeah. So that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff, was that a fumble or was that an interception when he kind of stepped up and that guy just took that ball away from him? I think I counted as an interception. I do. But
did the ball leave his hand?
I don't know, man. But that was a crazy
crazy play.
Your pocket awareness has to be better than that. It wasn't really in the pocket, but still, he sidestepped the guy. The guy went around, and obviously the guy was going to be behind him, and he cocked and threw. That was on fourth down, too. But, yeah, also the Vikings. The Vikings, dude. Vikings football is a train wreck. Yeah. Being a fan of the Vikings right now would be so tough.
Definitely.
All their games are so tight. I've been over this on the show many times, but it's like it's a one-score game, 3-point game, one-score game. I think if you look back, I think all of their games, maybe -1, were all one-score games.
Super close.
So geez, yeah, dude, you're so close to being great, and then you just don't be great. That'd be tough on them.
Yeah, but I've watched a good amount of their games throughout the season. Granted, it's the Lions. They did have a clutch drive at the end. They scored a touchdown with Justin Jefferson, and with it was 1:50 on the clock, I believe, left, giving the Lions the ball back. But they scored a touchdown to put them up by 5 points. And there's been other times in the season they've come back on clutch drives to take the lead at the very end, but the other team just clutches up, and their defense blows it.
Yeah, I thought the Lions were going to lion.
I thought they were too.
They were up 20-6 at half.
Of course.
And then the Vikings explode.
Yeah.
Jay Jetta with
amazing
11 receptions, 182 yards, and 2 touchdowns. One touchdown,
yeah.
But still, man, that's a crazy game.
Yeah, definitely. Jefferson has been definitely taking the larger role, and with Adam Thielen gone now too, he was hurt earlier in the game. I think a high ankle sprain, they said. Jefferson's going to get even more of the workload. And the injuries have been a pretty big problem, too, for the Vikings, though. I mean, they didn't have Dalvin Cook this game.
But Alex Madison
he's always produced well. Yeah. I mean, he had 22 carries, 90 rushing yards, and a touchdown with 3 catches and 34 yards. I mean, Madison always produces well, but it's, Dalvin Cook. It's kind of hard to take his place. So
I will give credit Jared Goff, too, because he did play well at the final drive.
Yeah, I mean, he played clutch.
People were blaming Cameron Dantzler, who was the cornerback on the right side. But, yeah, they said that he stayed back. But I think Jared Goff looked him off into the seams and then threw right here. So I don't know. It was an impressive play by Goff. So, okay, how can the Lions use this game to build up a successful future? And were you impressed by Dan Campbell in this game?
I do like Dan Campbell. I think he's a good players coach. He definitely connects to the players and hypes them up and does everything he can to try and, I guess, protect them because, I mean, obviously it's been a hard season on them. But he will call people out when it's necessary. Like he called out Jared Goff earlier in the season saying that he needs to play better if the team wants to win. And, well, Jared Goff came up clutch for the, I guess, first time of the season and actually won the game. I think you just kind of build, like you said, build off of this momentum, take the positives out of it. I mean, there's been so many negatives throughout the season. I mean, they got their first win in, week 15? But,
13,
I mean, yeah, so it'll be okay. I think the Lions can definitely improve for next year if they go through the draft correctly. It'll be all right.
I think Dan Campbell straight up out-coached Mike Zimmer in this game, too. So I was really impressed by him. And then one more question before we move on to the other games. Where do you see the Vikings going from here? What happens to Mike Zimmer? Do they make the playoffs? What do you see?
Yeah, the Vikings, I believe, held the 7th spot before going into this week.
I think so as well.
But obviously they've fallen out of that. I think the Vikings can recover, but they need to turn it on fast. I mean, I guess the Lions and Vikings is like a divisional rival, but the Vikings have beat the Lions in most of the previous matchups. So I think the Vikings can definitely turn it around. They have the weapons on offense. I mean, with Thielen being out for a little bit, it's going to be more on Jefferson, and with Dalvin out. But I definitely can see the Vikings turning it around. They have good players. It's just a demoralizing loss.
Yeah,
it's a big blow.
And the Vikings hold the 9 seed right now, but they're only a game out.
I mean, the NFC is so competitive right now,
especially at the bottom.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, and your next game is what?
The Giants versus the Dolphins. So the Dolphins came on top 20-9. This game was kind of a slower paced game, I feel. It wasn't like as outstanding as obviously the Vikings and Lions. Mike Glennon had 187 yards and 1 interception. I don't see Mike Glennon being a very good quarterback anymore. I don't know how he got in that position. Tua played pretty well, though, 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think Jalen Waddle's really come in to be a big star recently.
Wow, man. Yeah.
He's been producing very well. I mean, 9 catches, 90 yards, and this is just another big game throughout the season. I think the last 2 weeks has been going off.
I think the whole season, and then he dropped a touchdown.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, still, if you add on those yards and that touchdown, that's an even better game of what he had.
Yeah.
Already the 9 for 90.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jalen did struggle, I feel like, earlier in the season. I mean, maybe he didn't get as many looks, but also the Dolphins start off 1-7, and now they've completely flipped it within the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, what the heck, dude? 6-7 now?
Yeah, I mean, good for them. How can you hate the Dolphins? They've never done anything to anybody. I mean, so I'm happy for them.
I think watching football fans could argue that they did.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, Tua. I mean, at this point, he's playing really well. He's making a case for himself to stay.
Yeah.
I think it'd be dumb to move on. Well,
yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
Tua's still young. I like to say give the players at least a few years to prove themselves. I mean, yes, Tua has mistakes, but I mean, there's always plenty of time to build off of it. Obviously, the quarterback is under the magnifying glass the most. I mean, if you make a slip up, everyone's going to see it on TV. It's the most obvious for everyone. So I feel like you can't blame Tua as much. I mean, obviously, the Dolphins within the last few years haven't been the greatest program. So, yeah, I agree with you that Tua has a chance to earn his spot and stay at the Dolphins for a while.
But it's hilarious, too, because, I mean, we were talking about Brian Flores and Chris Greer. A few weeks ago, we were saying, what are the Dolphins going to do? Are they going to fire him? And now they're 6-7, and they're 1 game out of the playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make that big of a turnaround, I guess you should keep your job for a little
bit
longer.
Yeah.
But I feel like it depends on how they finish out the season. If they obviously made the flip, which is good, but if you can't make the final little push at the end, then that's where it's most important anyways.
Well, same with Tua, I think, as well. Like,
yeah.
If Tua starts to fall off at the end of the season, then they'll probably move on.
Definitely, I agree with that.
And then Mike Glennon got a concussion. So Jake Fromm will be in next week. So I just mean the Giants. That's tough.
That is very difficult. And I mean, that's their 3rd-string quarterback. How many reps do you think Jake Fromm's?
He just got signed off the practice squad, so not many.
Yeah. So that'll definitely be rough. Something else I want to note about the Dolphins, though. I mean, Xavier Howard had an interception and has played pretty well throughout the season. Aside from wanting to leave in the beginning of the year, he was requesting a trade or at least some sort of move because the Dolphins weren't willing to pay him enough money. So I think that's really cool that Xavier Howard has still been part of the team and putting his best foot forward for everyone else.
So I think the guaranteed money was the issue, but he's still making $18 million a year.
Yeah.
Which is
that's a lot of money.
Extremely high for a cornerback.
Yeah.
And then so there wasn't much to say about New York in this game besides maybe Saquon looking somewhat back. What do you think the Giants do this offseason? Do you think that they move on from Daniel Jones? What do you think happens?
I mean, it's kind of hard. Daniel Jones has showed some light, but yeah, I think they should definitely at least move in a veteran presence to try and maybe coach him up if that's possible. I mean, Mike Glennon obviously was the backup, but I mean, I guess there's experience you can get from quarterbacks like that. I mean, the Eagles brought in Joe Flacco, and they brought Joe Flacco back to the Jets to try and coach up Zach Wilson.
What I think of right away is the Giants, too, because they had Eli Manning.
Yeah.
And then they brought in Kurt Warner to be kind of a veteran presence to kind of teach Eli Manning how to play.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not like they would take his spot, I guess, right away. But I think it's definitely a better veteran presence to help build up Daniel Jones, because obviously something's not working.
I agree, and I would move on if I'm David Gettleman. I don't like Daniel Jones, but obviously they do. And then your next game is Seattle and San Francisco, right?
Yes. So the 49ers lost to the Seahawks 23-30. This game was just insanely hectic and crazy right from the start. I mean, on the first play, it's terrible to see, but the 49ers kick returner got a neck injury right on the first kickoff, which
full ambulance.
Yeah, I've never seen that before, where they brought a full ambulance, stretcher, and everything. So that's terrible. Prayers up to that family.
Seriously.
Yeah, but this game was really crazy. I think there's a total of 6 turnovers between both teams, and yeah, it was just wild. Jimmy Garoppolo had 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Russell Wilson threw for 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
So, okay, on the Niners front, I am not a Jimmy Garoppolo fan at all. I like Trey Lance as the up-and-coming quarterback, obviously. And Kyle Shanahan just looked frustrated with Jimmy Garoppolo in this game, wasn't able to do what he wanted him to do.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I have a question about is Kyle Shanahan is the offensive genius, you know? He's the guy that knows how to run the ball. He will build different ways to run the ball. But they averaged 2.8 yards per carry in this game. That's awful.
Terrible.
So what's the issue with Kyle Shanahan right now? Well, didn't they're off of 3 straight wins, actually.
Yes.
You know what?
I was going to say, because I remember we had this conversation earlier in the year when you questioned whether Kyle is still considered an offensive genius, and we talked about it. I feel that, yes, he wasn't top 10 in coaching currently. But I don't know. The 49ers have been on a 3-game win streak, and then they go into the Seattle. I mean, they never seem to play good against Seattle at Seattle.
I will step off a little bit now thinking about it because divisional games are obviously different.
Yeah.
Because, they are playing super well lately.
And Seattle's defense has always played very well against the 49ers. But you can't pit that only against, I guess, the defense. You have to give them credit. But the offense didn't show out this week at all. Jimmy, it starts with Jimmy, honestly. If he can't get the ball downfield and he's not a true passing threat outside of just little screen passes and dump-offs to George Kittle here and there, I mean, they can stack the box and prepare for the run because they know what's going to be coming. I mean, that's what the 49ers build their offense around. And so when you
Monster, by the way. Yak Monster, George
Exactly.
Kittle.
But when you shut down the 49ers running offense, I mean, you force Jimmy to throw, he's going to make the errors like the 2 interceptions like we talked about.
Yeah, and I mean, looking back at the history of the Seahawks versus the 49ers, since the Russell Wilson era, 2012, he's been 17-4 against the Niners.
Yeah.
So Seattle has won 16 of their last 18 matchups, and they've swept them 6 times in the past 10 years. That's utter dominance, in that rivalry. It's weird to me if you look at the NFC West. The Seahawks dominate the 49ers. The 49ers dominate the Rams.
Yep.
And the Rams dominate the Seahawks. So it's
it's a weird cycle.
It's
very
so weird,
crazy,
man.
Yeah.
And then Gerald Everett, 2 fumbles.
Yeah.
That one pick that he
interception.
caused.
Yeah. He kicked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why there's just some crazy plays that I've just never seen before.
There was some stuff though, at the end of the game, there was 4 minutes left. The Seahawks had the option to kick the ball or go for it on 4th down. If they kick the ball, then they go up 2 scores. And it's a 2-possession game, so they go up 10. But they decided to go for it on 4th down, and then they were unsuccessful because Gerald Everett fumbled after that. So I mean, they were successful on that 4th down, but the plays afterwards didn't work out. In my move, in my opinion, if I was the head coach, I would use analytics, which Pete Carroll was trying to use, but I would use them and realize that there's human beings around me. Yeah. You gotta balance human beings and analytics. So analytics actually said that this is a toss-up. So it's either kick the ball or go for it on 4th down. I think when it's a toss-up like that, you gotta kick the ball. You gotta make it a 2-possession game. Because the Niners almost drove down and tied up the game.
I agree with you on that, but I feel like the Seahawks are in a position that they don't have to take the safe route. I mean, if the Seahawks got that first down, completed the drive, and scored that touchdown, the game would have been over. And the Seahawks had nothing to lose against the 49ers except for possibly keeping your playoff hopes alive. And
the
shutting
playoff
down,
hopes went from 2% to 3%.
There you go. And they're possibly shooting the 49ers in the foot and taking them out of the race, which is, I mean, if I was a Seahawks fan, that'd be everything I'd want.
Yeah.
So I agree and disagree with that opinion. I mean, I feel like Pete Carroll was justified for his decision.
Okay, I feel that. And then, before we move on to my game, I have a few questions about the Seahawks. And then let's ask one question about the Niners first. Do you think the Niners can bounce back and be Super Bowl contenders?
Yes to the first half, no to the second. I mean, contenders is a hard word, especially this season in the NFL. There's dominant teams, and then there's subpar teams. And the NFC, the 6 and 7 wild card teams right now are going to be subpar teams that make the playoffs. And that's where the 49ers would happen to fall. I don't see them getting past the first round unless it's a fluke of a game. That's about as far as I could see it.
Okay.
But I think that they could definitely bounce back. They have a hard week up next against the Bengals. But they have a few games like the Falcons and the Texans coming up. So I think they could have maybe snatch, like I said, the final wild card spot, but no Super Bowl run.
And then one more thing before we do move on to my game. Okay, the Seahawks, what do they do now with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll?
I mean, they got the win that they wanted. Russ definitely seemed like something was off. I mean, he didn't play his greatest game ever. I mean, granted, he still has a finger injury. But he doesn't seem like the original Russ that you think about of scrambling, making plays, and amazing throws. I mean, he had good throws, not taking away from it.
But there was errant
But
throws.
there was errant throws, and there was still mishaps that happened pretty often. That doesn't normally happen when Russ is a quarterback. So if I was the Seahawks position, I wouldn't keep the head coach, but I would keep the quarterback. There's still stuff to build around Russell Wilson. He's still a great talent. He still has a future in the league. And I feel like coaches are, quote unquote, more replaceable than a quarterback in this position.
I'd agree.
I mean, that's what Green Bay did. They had to get rid of Mike McCarthy, but I mean, you're not going to say no to Aaron Rodgers. You can't just pass up on a Russell Wilson type talent. So I feel like if the Seahawks do want to move forward and keep a good chemistry on the team, I feel like you got to keep Russell Wilson.
And I agree there. I think Russell Wilson is like the team. He helps them win, obviously.
Yeah.
And then, Pete Carroll's 7 years old, so you're either going to pick a 7-year-old coach or a 33-year-old quarterback that could play for much longer. I think like one of the hottest candidates is going to be Kellen Moore this offseason. So I think that's a potential hire the Seahawks can go on. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And then let's go into Arizona and Chicago. So Arizona, welcome back Kyler Murray, first off.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't like have insane numbers. He went 11 for 15, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also had 59 rushing yards, which is the most he's had all season, and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of touchdowns there.
Yeah.
But Arizona just looks like the most balanced team in the NFL. Not even NFC, but NFL.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
Their offense didn't really have to do much, but when they do need to do stuff, they do it.
Efficient.
Yeah, and then the defense, albeit it's Andy Dalton, but they picked him off 4 times. He's still a professional athlete. And then on the Bears, I didn't think there was much good to say, to be honest. David Montgomery played awesome. 21 carries, 90 yards, 1 touchdown, 8 receptions for 55 yards. But Andy Dalton just straight up sucks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, 26 for 41, 229, 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. That's an awful game. If you watch this game, you just saw how like down the Bears were.
Yeah.
They were like panning the camera to Nick Foles like often. So I don't know, man. It was just kind of sad. Some teams like there just isn't really much to say about on weeks. In Chicago this week, there isn't much to say. So let's go to Arizona again. Are Arizona Super Bowl favorites in the NFC? Do you agree, and why? Or why not?
I agree that they're a contender. I wouldn't say favorite necessarily. Honestly, it's a bold prediction saying that they might even get out of the NFC Championship. But I like Green Bay.
Okay.
Arizona plays, I mean, I agree with you. They're one of the most balanced teams in the league. They have great stars on defense. And their offense is, undeniable like we talked about. Their run game has really improved a lot with James Conner. D-Hop, how are you going to guard him? You can't. Kyler Murray, when he runs out of the pocket, he's going to burn you. Or he'll just throw it deep on you and just, score a casual touchdown here and there. I just feel that Arizona still lost to Green Bay with just Aaron Rodgers and practice squad wide receivers. Not saying that they can't beat them if they see them in the playoffs, because, Arizona is getting hot right now, and it's the most important time to get hot, at the end of the season. So, I could see them definitely making a very deep run.
I agree. I think they could win the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah,
just
definitely.
An overall balanced team. But yeah, like 2 teams I think that really rival them in the NFC. Actually, there's 3 teams that really rival them in the NFC. Like you said, Green Bay. I think Tampa Bay is a really good team.
You can't count out Tom.
Exactly.
Never.
And then also the Rams. I know the Rams were 0-3 for the past month, but I mean they're still the Rams.
Yeah, and there's so many changes that happened all at once. I mean, you can't really blame them. I mean, obviously it's kind of hard to have a team come together when they're all from different places. I mean, Von Miller, OBJ, those are 2 big names that come into the locker room. You can kind of change the chemistry for a few weeks. I mean, Sean McVay, like we said, you just can't count him out. So I think the Rams could definitely go deep too.
I think so as well. And then on the Bears side, is Matt Nagy totally done in your eyes? And if so, who would they hire instead?
I thought about it before the season. I mean, what has Matt Nagy done for the Bears?
Yeah.
I mean,
they let him to playoffs
with Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah. Granted, but I mean, I think the defense carried him that year, anyways.
Oh, they did. Yeah.
So, I think Matt Nagy's probably done with at least a head coaching job for a little bit, unless he could easily get like a coordinator type role, but I don't see a head coaching.
I think he could be a good coordinator.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Not a head coach.
But no, not a head coach right now. I think he's done.
Well, who do you think they would hire to match up with Justin Fields? Do you have anybody in mind?
I don't have a specific name. I just think that they need more offensive help on that to try and coach up Justin. I mean, I like Nick Foles. Nick Foles is a great backup. I mean, Andy Dalton's even good to help coach him up. But I've always been a big Nick Foles admirer. I mean, you could say he helped coach up Carson. I mean, Carson hasn't been great, but during his MVP season, who was right behind him helping him along the way, and built him up since he was a rookie. So I think Nick Foles can have a big role in helping Justin Fields, but you need a helpful coach that can really play a big role in his development.
I agree, and I think Justin Fields, he really carries the Bears.
Yeah,
it's similar to Russell Wilson, I would say, in that aspect. But this just shows how good he's been playing.
Yeah,
not making those dumb throws that Andy Dalton was making, and just carrying the Bears to close games, not always winning them, but and also winning some, but just close games overall.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're keeping it close, how much can the Bears really do right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I put them almost in the category as the Lions of kind of being helpless. I mean, there's not really a bright future as of right now. So I do think that Justin Fields could be that bright light.
I think once they move on and get a better coach, then it's more bright.
Yeah,
obviously,
definitely. They have weapons.
Yeah, they do. And then I think that's the end of all the games. Is that correct?
Yep.
So, Brenden, thank you for coming on the show. You did a really great job. This is our final show of the semester, and you did great on it. I enjoyed you this semester.
Thank you so much.
You talked about football pretty well. Again, go follow Brenden at BrendenJ14, or also follow his podcast at No Gain Sports. So, Brenden, thank you for coming on the show. You did a great job.
Thank you so much, Trevor.
Awesome. Cool.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the Weekend Wrap-Up with Trevor Junt. I'm your host, Trevor Junt.
And I'm Danny Flynn.
And follow him at dd.flynn on social media. Danny, how was your weekend watching football this week?
Weekend was great, but the games that we had, I'm not going to lie, not that riveting. I mean, we have about 4 blowouts here coming up. But we'll start things off. We got the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Jets, with starting for the first time in Philadelphia history, Gardner Minshew. Exciting day to be a WSU NFL fan. He had honestly a great game, 20 for 25, 242 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And honestly, to me, just looked like he was seeing the open field and delivering it to who he needed to who he needed to. Dallas Goedert was wide open most of the game. Led the Eagles in receptions with 6 and 105 yards with 2 touchdowns. And yeah, I mean, they looked great.
I mean, Gardner looked incredible too. The Eagles scored on their first 7 possessions. He started the game with 11 straight completions. He ended up 20 for 25, 242, and 2 touchdowns. Miles Sanders had the first 100-yard rushing game for the Eagles this year, so that was cool.
That was very exciting because the Eagles have a good running core, but they just underutilize it. Miles Sanders was injured for part of the season, but I think the Eagles are at their best when they're running the ball effectively.
He went down with an ankle injury in this game, too.
He did late in the 4th. The Eagles do have their bye week coming up, so should give them a little time to recover from that.
If I'm a Jets fan, by the way, I am concerned. The Jets defense is just awful.
Mm-hmm.
The future of the defense worries me. Robert Saleh is supposed to be a defensive genius, and it's just been rough for the Jets all season. And then looking on the other side of the ball, the Jets scored in the first 3 possessions. Zach Wilson played really well. He looked awesome. I mean, he had 23 for 38, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. What's your opinion on Zach Wilson or the Jets offense?
Zach Wilson, he's untested. He's been playing pretty well in a few games, but I don't think that he has the production behind him and sort of the rap to really sort of solidify himself as, you know, a star quarterback in the NFL. He's had a great run, and I hope that continues. I mean, honestly, I feel sorry for Jets fans most years, and this being one of them. And so I love to see him succeed, kind of like an underdog story. 6
straight losing seasons for the Jets.
Yeah.
And then on Gardner Minshew, next year on he said that there's no quarterback controversy. Do you actually believe that?
So I'd like there to be quarterback controversy, whether that exists now or not. I don't think so. I think the Eagles do have a pretty nice system going with Jalen Hurts off the read option, but I mean, it was nice to see a quarterback just drop back in the pocket and deliver to who he needed it to. I mean, he got just about all of his receivers involved. I mean, even Jalen Reagor had a reception for 7 yards. But yeah, in terms of quarterback controversy right now, I don't think so. I think Jalen Hurts is the guy, but I mean, you never know. Minshew mania.
I think he's the guy as well. I think Minshew's more like trade bait right now. He might be the best like backup in the league, to be honest. He's playing really well. And then one thing I do want to note on backup quarterbacks, I said this last week or 2 weeks ago. The thing with backup quarterbacks, they play well, I think, because the defense doesn't have much preparation against them. Jalen Hurts is questionable for most of the week, and then they roll him out, I think, on Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
So it's different for the defense, and I don't know. We take like those backup wins, the backup games with a grain of salt, you know.
Yeah.
And then what's your next game?
Next up, we have
Tampa Bay and Atlanta.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Bucs win 30-17 over the Atlanta Falcons, and the Bucs then move on to 9-3, and the Falcons drop to 5-7. Tom Brady looked great, 38 for 51, 368 yards, and 4 touchdowns with an interception. He was loving Gronk. He saw Gronk. Missed the first pass to him, but then on Gronk's next 2 receptions, both of those were touchdowns. And Chris Godwin continues to be a dominant receiver and one of Brady's favorite targets. He had 15 receptions on 17 targets for 143 yards.
That's a Tampa Bay record, by the way, as well.
Yeah, it is. that is true.
And then on Gronk and Brady, they now have 90 overall touchdowns in the regular season, which is second all time, passing Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates.
Wow.
They are far behind Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning, but still, second all time is very impressive.
Indeed. I mean, Falcons' woes in Atlanta continue. Matt Ryan, you know, I mean, not a totally terrible game, but also not productive. 30 of 41, 297 yards with no touchdowns and no interceptions. The Falcons did have a pick 6, though, right before the end of the half, which made things interesting. It cut the lead then 17-20, but they couldn't find a score again for the rest of the game. And so then the Bucs score, 10 unanswered, and that's the ball game.
Speaking of Matt Ryan, I want to take back my apology to Matt Ryan. I apologize to him. I called him bad. He played well. I apologize. I take it back, man. You're not a good quarterback, okay? They can't really move the ball. The O-line let me get sacked 5 times for 38 yards. He's as mobile as a statue, to be honest. He did nothing special. He is nothing special right now. And the team is trying to be young and build upon the young team, you know. He's going to be 37 next year.
He's not the guy for
so
that.
Seriously. I mean, they all have a lot of money next year, but, like, at this point, you just have to realize he's not the guy, you know?
Yeah.
And then Tom Brady, dude, he's a friggin' MVP for me this year. Voter fatigue will probably say no, but, I mean, 368 yards and 4 touchdowns, that's awesome.
At, like, 76 years old or whatever he is now. I mean, he's putting up insane numbers. I mean, not even, like, just with the conditional of his age. Like, these are just, like, objectively fantastic numbers for a quarterback this season.
Do you think Tampa Bay is ready to contend again for the Super Bowl?
I think so. I mean, they're looking scary. I mean, they've got I mean, it's a pretty competitive league right now, especially in the playoffs. You got a lot of teams at 7-5 that look scarier than 7-5, and I mean, you've got Buffalo, Arizona, and so I mean, but like any given Sunday, I mean, the BUCS could do it, and Tom Brady. It's hard to bet against Tom Brady, especially in the playoffs. So if they get to that point, their odds are looking good.
So how does Brady look as like an MVP candidate to you?
I mean, I don't know, especially with the way that Josh Allen's been playing. It's tough to just 100% say, Brady, you're the guy, just especially because Josh Allen's got the mobile factor too, and I mean, he's younger, more athletic, and he's been playing out of his mind too, and so it's a tough race, but yeah, I'm probably saying Josh Allen over Tom Brady for the MVP this year.
Okay. And then your next game is LA and Cincinnati, right?
Yes, the LA Chargers win 41-22 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Both teams are now 7-5. Justin Herbert looked phenomenal. 26 of 35, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. And he found Keenan Allen twice in the first quarter for touchdowns. I think the Chargers started off the game 24-0. And then the Bengals were able to come back through a couple of defensive stops that turned into points and got it to 24-16. But then they weren't able to do much after that. And
the Chargers took off in the fourth quarter, man. 17 straight?
Off. Yeah.
Jeez.
Burrow started to come alive in the second quarter. He found Tyler Boyd twice on deep balls to set up the Bengals for their first touchdown in the second quarter. But then Herbert started to look a little shaky too. He was sacked twice and threw an interception in the second quarter. Eckler, he fumbled a ball midway through the third while the Chargers were up by 8. But eventually, later in the fourth, Joe Mixon fumbled on the first possession, and that set up a Chargers touchdown, which kind of sealed the game for them.
And then Joe Burrow, speaking on that, like he played well, 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, 2 interceptions. The 2 picks aren't that good, but he got sacked 6 times. That was weird to me because the Cincinnati O-line has been playing very good this year.
Yeah.
And then the Chargers defensive line is just awful. They didn't have Joey Bosa for this game either because he had a concussion. So I don't know. 6 sacks is just kind of odd to me seeing that. Herbert is just so much freaking fun to watch, man. He had that 1 deep bomb across the field. He's literally over here, chucks it across the field, and Jalen Guyton goes up and catches it right here. Oh my goodness, that was so much fun.
Insane, and he had a tackle too. I mean, he was doing really everything that game.
There were 7 turnovers in this game too. 2 fumbles by Eckler, 1 fumble by Mixon, 1 fumble by Joe Burrow, 2 picks by Burrow, and 2 picks. Oh, and 1 pick by Herbert. My bad. Okay, so both the teams, like you said, are 7-5. Cincinnati is the 7th seed. LA is the 6th seed. Do you believe in either of these teams that they can go far in the playoffs? Are they Super Bowl contenders to you at all, or what?
I'm not going to say they're Super Bowl contenders right now. They're both very young teams, which I like, especially with both the quarterbacks at the helm are sophomores this year. And they're playing well, which to me it bodes confidence that they're going to do well in the future then too. They seem to have the pieces together to be a strong team. But whether they're able to be Super Bowl contenders this year, I'm not seeing the evidence for it.
Okay, and then if you had to pick between Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert for your future, who would you pick?
I'm going Justin Herbert. I think that he's been more dynamic this year. He's able to run the ball. I think he reads the field better than Joe Burrow does. But I mean, to credit to Joe Burrow, he's also been playing like great this year.
Yeah.
But I think between the two, Justin Herbert to me takes the cake over Joe Burrow.
Going back to the last question, I disagree. I mean, I kind of agree, actually. The Chargers just aren't consistent enough to me. The Bengals also aren't super consistent.
Yeah,
you need to be consistent to win the Super Bowl, you know?
Yeah.
And then I would take Justin Herbert, too. I think he's, like, insanely talented. the massive arm, the accuracy, the crazy plays that he makes. I like Joe Burrow, but Justin Herbert's just more fun and more talented.
Agreed.
And then your next game is, well, I guess it's my game, isn't it? It's Jacksonville and Los Angeles Rams, right?
Yep.
I mean, goodness. The Jags were officially eliminated from playoff contention this week. They're now 2-10.
Yeah.
The Jags have now lost at least 10 games in their last 11 seasons, so that's really bad. I thought Trevor Lawrence was going to turn it around by the end of the season, but obviously he's not going to. I was wrong. He literally has no line talent around him, no wide receiver really talent around him. When Laquan Treadwell is going to be leading you in receiving, you're going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, and then this might be like one of the worst performances that I've ever seen by an offense. Urban Meyer, to me, is truly an awful head coach. I think he should be fired, or they should move along and help Trevor develop. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jags, needs to realize that he's the future and that there's an issue with the head coach. And that I think they should build solely around Trevor Lawrence. What's your opinion on Trevor Lawrence or the Jags right now?
I mean, there's really not a whole lot of positive to say about Trevor Lawrence this season. I think that the Jags are punching air right now, seeing Gardner Minshew's performance this Sunday too. Because I mean, if they had just built around Minshew rather than drafting Trevor Lawrence, I mean, who's to say in the hypothetical? But
bro, that's a hot take. I'll tell you that right now.
It is a hot take, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that they could have found, like, I mean, Trevor Lawrence isn't bringing anything to the table that Gardner Minshew hadn't brought them.
See, I disagree. I totally disagree there. I think Trevor Lawrence is a way more talented quarterback. Gardner Minshew's playing well, yeah, but Trevor Lawrence just has like the intangible. Like, he's 6'6". He has the massive arm. Gardner Minshew doesn't have quite the arm. He's super smart. Yeah, I don't know. I think Trevor Lawrence is just way more talented, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, historically speaking, rookie quarterbacks do tend to not perform that well. And so, I mean, he's a young guy in his career and on a pretty bad team.
Yeah.
I mean, so
really bad team. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, whether it's him finding trouble like fitting into the team or fitting into the offense, or just him shaking off his freshman rust, I'm not sure. But yeah, I wouldn't be too like happy about the season if I'm Trevor Lawrence.
Me neither. And then the Rams, they were coming off 3 straight losses. And this is a good bounce back game for them. It was close actually until like the third quarter. And then Matt Stafford went up and threw for 3 touchdowns. And he ended up 26 for 38 with 3 touchdowns. Sony Michel exploded for 24 carries, 121 and 1 touchdown. Henderson was injured. Darrell Henderson was injured, so Sony Michel stepped in. OBJ caught that fade at the one to score.
Yeah.
And then he did that like self-reviving move from Call of Duty.
I saw that where he was just like on the ground.
Yeah, he said he was reviving his career. I thought that was pretty cool.
True, but I mean that was his. Besides like a 1-yard reception, that was all he did the entire game. Though. So,
Yeah, that's true.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Cooper Kupp though, he did Cooper Kupp things.
He does. Yeah, Cooper Kupp was phenomenal this game too. I mean, 8 receptions, 129, and a touchdown. And he had that post-game answer too.
My goodness.
He just described in the most technical detail like how he read the defense and got into the end zone for his score, which I thought was incredible because
that was cool.
I don't know how many receivers could articulate like exactly what
Seriously,
they see.
Yeah.
And like sort of just know exactly what they're doing. Like I mean that was nearly robotic. Like it was like the Wikipedia definition of what the read was.
What he's saying right now is really cool. Go look that up on Twitter or online. Cooper Kupp explains how he read the defense to run a different route. It was really cool to see. And then he's the first player in NFL history with at least 100 catches and 10 reception touchdowns in the first 12 games.
Wow.
So
yeah.
How far do you see the Rams going? Can they truly win the Super Bowl? Is Matt Stafford's consistency an issue to you?
Matt Stafford, to me, is a good quarterback, and I'm glad that he's now finding a bit of success with the Rams after being stuck in Detroit for however long that was, way too long than any man should be stuck in Detroit.
LeBron got that's a whole different city. My bad.
And he's got some good weapons. I mean, like Cooper Kupp has been dominant this year. OBJ has the potential for big plays every once in a while. and Darrell Henderson's a more than adequate running back. I mean, they've got a good team, and I mean, their defense has looked pretty solid this year. I mean, it hasn't been like insane, but I mean, so I don't know if I see them as a Super Bowl contender, but I mean, they're looking good.
What kind of contender do you think they are? Like NFC Championship
Or like second round playoffs
second
type
round
beat?
playoffs? Yeah, I think so too. I think Matt Stafford's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback.
Fair.
I think he's talented, but I don't know. He just doesn't show up when he needs to show up to me, and it's just not good enough.
I also thought that the Jaguars had more trouble than they usually do running the ball. They only had 61 rushing yards for the whole game. Carlos Hyde and James Robinson each had 24 rushing yards, and Carlos had a touchdown, but they also each lost a fumble. And turnovers like that.
To be fair, one of the first plays of the game was a running play by the Jags, and Aaron Donald just
he just swooped in. I mean, he got so much power. I mean, like, so dominant. Russell Wilson's finger will tell you. I mean, yeah.
Any quarterback will tell you.
I've got sympathy for anyone taking a tackle by Aaron Donald and fumbling it. Like, I mean, I understand.
Well, that was awesome, man. I think it's all the game. Is that correct?
That's everything we got. Yeah.
Danny, thank you for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
The last show of the semester, and I enjoyed having you on the entire season. We'll be back, like we said, for next semester, talking about the playoffs. So, Danny, thank you very much for coming on the show. You did a great job. One more time, Knox, man.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Weekend Wrap-Up with Trevor Junt. I'm your host, Trevor Junt. This is Drew Amburgy. Follow him on social media at Drew_6_ or Drew Amburgy on Twitter. Also, before we go into the games, I know my hair is getting big. It's going to keep getting bigger. We're going to cut it during breaks, so don't worry about it. So let's go into your first game, Drew.
Hey, don't worry about it. It's winter time. I had to grow the beard out.
The beard looks good.
We're just trying to stay warm out here, okay? It just snowed in Pullman. We're just trying to stay warm, okay?
The snow was coming down on my hair. My hair looked beautiful and white. I'll say that.
It did look good. It did look good in the snow. But yeah, let's jump into it. So, first game I'm covering this week is the Colts and Texans. Now, getting this one out of the way because it was a certified snooze fest. Now, you knew it wasn't going to be a good game for Houston because they threw a pick on the first play of the game, which the Colts immediately drove down and which led to a Taylor touchdown. That's a pretty common theme this year. Pharaoh Brown for the Texans on the next drive caught a pass, immediately fumbled. Didn't get any points out of that one, but you could just sense from there that this game was not going to go well for the Texans. Colts capped off the first half with another touchdown. You know, Texans hanging a little bit tough, 14-0 going into the break. But another Taylor touchdown run to start the second half pretty much opened the floodgates. And this one was pretty much over after that, especially with that amazing running game that the Colts have with Taylor and Naheem Hines. It just wasn't even close. Final score, Colts 31, Texans 0, getting shut out at home. Never a good look. Taylor, I mean, how much can you say about this guy? I mean, another 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. Colts had 238 yards on the ground. And they just win with rushing and defense. And you know, when the season gets a little bit later going, a little bit later on in the season, rushing and defense is really the key to winning games when that weather starts getting worse. And you know what? The Colts are now right outside the playoff picture at 7-6. How do you think the Colts' chances of getting into the playoffs are after this week?
I think they can make the playoffs. I mean, they're a game out right now. I think they're in the 9th seed, but that's just because they played an extra game, haven't had a bye yet. Mm-hmm. I do want to mention Jonathan Taylor. You were talking about how good he's been playing. So he tied Lenny Moore in 1964, who for the most rush TDs in a single season at 16 touchdowns with 4 weeks left in Colts history. I mean, there's 4 weeks left in the season, but. He also has rushed for a TD in 10 straight games, which is the longest streak since LaDainian Tomlinson with 18 straight games from 2004 and 2005. So I don't know. Jonathan Taylor, if he plays like this, he's going to win the Offensive Player of the Year. He's battling Cooper Kupp for that, I think, right now. But he's playing insane.
For sure, for sure. He's definitely going to win the Offensive Player of the Year if it isn't Kupp. You know, I wish he had a chance to get the MVP, but, you know, we've seen, you know, with Derrick Henry last year, even if you get 2,000 yards, they're still not going to give you the MVP. So that ship may have sailed on a skill position, ever winning it again. But, yeah, he's having an amazing season and really kind of turned the whole thing around for the Colts. And he's going to be their every down back for the next at least 5 to 6 years.
Yeah,
Hopefully he can stay healthy. But yeah, I like their chances. You know, if you can ground and pound teams like that, you know that starts winning you games in December and January.
So what about Houston? I mean, Houston just seems like a bottomless pit right now.
Yeah, it's rough for those guys. You know, have fun with the top 2, top 3 pick. You know, rebuilding, it's not good in Houston right now. It's not good in Houston right now. Maybe if they can trade Deshaun and get a bunch of picks back, that's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel for them. You know, if they can get maybe a couple first rounders for him, that gives you some hope. But right now, it's not fun being a Texans fan.
They threw the ball 27 times and had a net gain of 57 yards. So that's awful. And Tyrod Taylor got benched as well.
Yeah, Tyrod had a bad game, and Davis Mills wasn't doing much better.
He had a rough game,
Yeah.
man. I mean, yeah, and scoring 0 points overall. Okay. So Houston with the top 2 or 3 pick. Are they picking the best player available, or do you think they're going quarterback for sure?
For this year, I think you need to go best player available. I don't really like any of the quarterbacks in the draft. Some people do like Kenny Pickett. You know, some people do like the quarterback from Ole Miss. But I just don't think either of those guys are franchise changers. So right now, if I was them, I'd either go Kayvon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson and just try to build the defense up. And then they're still going to be bad next year. So might as well wait around until you have a top pick in a draft where there's actually some really solid quarterbacks.
Bryce Young will be available for the draft next year. Not this year, but next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's some good ones projected in the 2023 draft as well, too. So I would hold on and just get the best player available right now.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And then, before we move on to the next game, you said Jonathan Taylor is the Offensive Player of the Year, yeah?
Yeah, I would say so.
Wow, okay. I agree. I mean,
Cooper
it's
Kupp's pretty amazing, though.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp's, they're both breaking records right now. So, they're doing things we haven't seen from wide receivers and running backs in a long time. You can go either way with it. They're both having amazing seasons. It's going to be a toss-up, to be honest, because Cooper Kupp is just a machine. Every game, 100 yards, couple of touchdowns. Seems like he's open every single play. But, you know, Taylor, I mean, he's really the reason why Indianapolis is winning games. I would say, to be honest, he may be a little bit more valuable to the Colts than Cooper Kupp is to the Rams.
Okay.
Both very valuable, but right now I'd give it to Taylor as far as like value-wise, as far as like winning games and keeping his team afloat in the playoff race.
I see where you're coming from. And then your next game is.
So I got the football team from Washington going against the Raiders of Las Vegas. This one was another defensive, slugfest. First drive by Washington, you wouldn't have thought it was going to be a defensive slugfest because they went right down the field. Heineke looked great. He actually played really well on Sunday. And then capped off that drive with a one-handed touchdown by Logan Thomas. It was a pretty sick grab. Not sure if you saw that one. Raiders added a couple of field goals, but it was still just 7-6 going into the fourth quarter. Heineke was playing solid, found Gibson for a touchdown to start the fourth. But then the Raiders finally got in the end zone, but they missed the 2-point conversion to keep it at 14-12. And those 2 points ended up coming back to bite them. It was a wild one to end this. The fourth quarter was actually pretty exciting considering they went in just 7-6. It was a wild one. After a pick by Vegas, they got a field goal with 2 minutes left. Heineke marches down the field, gets them a touchdown, and then they get another pick, and then they get a field goal to end up winning it 17-15. So they kind of went back and forth in the last couple of minutes there. Washington's defense has been playing amazing lately.
Yeah.
And
I don't know where that
it's the
came
reason
from.
why they've won 4 in a row right now. Like I said, it was a defensive slugfest. Only skills player over 100 yards was Renfro with 105. He's still having a pretty good year as well, too. And you know what? Washington is now the 6th seed in the NFC and in position to go to the playoffs. And they only have division games left. It's pretty crazy. They only play NFC East division rivals for the rest of the year. So it's going to be some crazy games in that division going down the stretch. What did you think about the game?
Well, I thought the game was ugly first off.
Yeah.
And then Taylor Heineke, I thought he played well, but I don't think he's going to ever be like an elite or a good quarterback, a great quarterback. I think he's a very, very good backup. Like, he's very good as a backup, but I think that's about as far as it goes. And then Derek Carr. Derek Carr came off an incredible Thanksgiving game and came up and just was mediocre. 28 for 38, 249 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. That was tough. I don't know, man. I think the Washington football team could make some noise. They always seem to be feisty. So I mean, I could see them being feisty this year. The 6th seed was really surprising to me. And then Vegas is at 6-6 as well, but they're the 10th seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
So that's a wild difference that I see, at least. I think it's been impressive what Las Vegas has done this season with their new head coach, Bisaccia, the Henry Ruggs situation, and the Damon Arnett thing. But where do you see them going from here? What happens next year? What happens in the next 5 years, I guess?
They're definitely trending in the wrong direction right now. I don't see them making the playoffs, the Raiders. So I think this season is probably kind of a wrap for them. I think this loss kind of stuck a fork. I mean, now, obviously, they could go on a run and end up, 11-6 or something like that. But I just don't see it from this team right now. I think Ruggs gave them such an ability to stretch the field, and just losing that for probably the foreseeable future just really limits the offense quite a bit. They really haven't been the same since he was out. There's just kind of been a cloud around this team this season. Obviously, they've just dealt with a lot. Props to their players. They've had to deal with quite a bit this year. Going forward, you still have Derek Carr. I still think he's a good quarterback. I just think you need, and I like Jacobs as well too. I just think their defense, they just need pieces here and there. I think they need to just get through this season. And there's enough talent on this team to where I think they could actually make a playoff run for the next couple of years. They got talent at positions. I love Waller. I love Jacobs. I think Carr's a good quarterback. Max Crosby on the defensive side of the ball is really good as well, too. They got some linebackers. I think they need to get past this season.
Yeah.
I think they need to regroup, get a good coach in there. I think a good coach would actually make a world of difference. Because if you have a decent amount of talent on an NFL team and you bring in a good coach, you can start winning some games.
I agree. I mean, look at the Chargers. The Chargers were a losing team last season, and then Brandon Staley steps in. They're 7-5 right now. So, I mean, a good head coach makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
And then the Washington football team, they're hot. They're running well. Ron Rivera's coaching well. You said, do you think they can sneak in the playoffs? Is that what you said?
I do think they can. Yeah. I mean, you get to play the Giants again. You get to play the Eagles. Cowboys games are going to be tough, but they're division games. Division games are crazy. Anything can happen in division games.
True.
So, I mean, if they were able to finish the season, I think they can get out of there with at least 2, maybe 3 more wins this season, and that would put them at 8-9 wins, which I think in the NFC is going to get into the playoffs. Now, if they were the AFC, it'd be a whole different story. But the NFC, the middle of the pack, there's just some bad teams in the NFC. So I do think that they'll be able to sneak into the playoffs if they can get 2 or 3 more wins.
I think I agree, yeah. I mean, you don't really need much to make the playoffs in the NFC right now.
I see them as a playoff team right now.
8 or 9 wins, yeah.
They're frisky, and their defense is playing really, really well. I don't know what clicked for them. Maybe it was getting a little bit healthier, but Ron Rivera has those boys playing well.
He does. And then your next game is Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so we got the old rivalry, arguably the best rivalry in the NFL.
True.
And it lived up to the hype once again. The Ravens struck first with a 99-yard touchdown drive that took over 10 minutes, and they cashed it in with a Freeman run with just under 9 minutes before halftime. So this lets you know how that first half was going. No score until just about 9 minutes left in the half.
I think possession-wise, they had about 22 minutes of possession.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy in that first half there. Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, the fans were going nuts. Big game. Because, first of all, the Ravens were fighting for that number 1 seed in the AFC, and the Steelers were just trying to stay afloat. Because, as we just mentioned, the AFC is tough. And you're going to have to probably be at least 2 games, maybe 3 over 500 to get in the playoffs this year. The Steelers were kind of lucky in that first half. Big Ben did play well, but he did have about 4 tipped balls that just fell to the ground incomplete. And say the Ravens catch a couple of those, this game may look completely different. Ben came alive in the fourth quarter. The Steelers were down 10-3, so it was another defensive slugfest in this game. Big Ben came alive. He found Deontay Johnson for a wide-open touchdown. Then they went and got a field goal, and then another touchdown with a 2-point conversion on consecutive drives to go up 7. I mean, their offense was unstoppable in the fourth quarter. Lamar drives down with about 2 minutes left. They get a touchdown, and then old Harbaugh, just being a little ballsy there, he went for 2, down 1 to try and win the game, get out of Pittsburgh with a win. But it fell just short. He actually overthrew Mark Andrews just a little bit. He did get a hand. It's so close. If he would able to bring it in, he would have walked in for a touchdown. But it's a game of inches, and that ended up costing them the game. What do you think about the Ravens going for 2 in that situation?
They said they had no cornerbacks left. Well, that's what John Harbaugh said.
Yeah.
I mean, Marlon Humphrey's now out for the year with a shoulder sprain or shoulder injury. I'm not sure exactly what it was. But I don't know. I don't disagree with it because, it's like you have one opportunity to score, and if we score, we win this game, Or you go into overtime and you have a possibility of losing the coin toss and then them scoring overall and then you having to score again. I don't know. I don't disagree with it. I think it was actually not that bad of a call. I think it was maybe a good call. It was a good play as well. Mark Andrews was wide open.
It was there.
Yeah.
It was there, yeah.
If you look at it, Devin Bush was right there chasing Mark Andrews, and then he was just so relieved when he was overthrown.
Yeah, he knew he got beat. He got beat. It was a quick just out route, and it was there. I actually really liked the call. Now, you know how we are nowadays where everybody wants to go for it on 4th down, throw caution to the wind, go for it every time. So it gets criticized either way. If they get that 2-point conversion, it's the best decision he ever made.
Yeah.
If they don't get it, why would you do that? Trust your defense. But I like the call a lot. I think you got Lamar Jackson and a good offense. Go out, get 2 yards, win the game. You're on the road. You might as well go for it. And like you said, the coin toss, it's a 50-50 shot. You're going to get it. You just saw Big Ben and the Steelers scored on 3 consecutive drives to end the game, 2 of them being touchdowns. So it's probably pretty likely, especially with your corners out, that if you lose that coin toss, they're going to go right down and get a touchdown. They weren't stopping anything that the Steelers were doing in that fourth quarter. So I actually really like the call by him. I think you need to go out and win the game when your offense still had the ball in your hands.
I think there was a notable point, too, with Pittsburgh and their defense. Mm-hmm. They had 7 sacks in this game.
Yeah.
And T.J. Watt, I was making sure I got that stat right. T.J. Watt had 3.5 sacks in the game. So, I mean, he destroyed. The blitz has been working against Lamar. Miami showed it. Cleveland showed it. Pittsburgh showed it. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was notable as well. With Baltimore being like a top seed in the AFC, it's just you see the weakness right there,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's notable as well.
Yeah.
You said you thought it was the right decision. I agree. Baltimore fell to the 3rd seed from the 1st seed. Where do you see them going? Do you trust Lamar?
I think that's tough because I think they probably just lost their chance of being the 1 seed this year. I think that's how big that game was. Because I just don't see the Chiefs or the Pats losing again. I think both those teams are really hot. They might drop 1 here or there, but I think the Ravens, with how beat up they are, it's just going to be tough. It's going to be a war of attrition going down the stretch. And you look at teams like the Chiefs and Patriots, they're getting healthier. The Ravens seem like they're losing somebody every week.
Yeah.
So that was a really tough one for the Ravens. I see them probably hanging around that 3 seed, 4 seed for the rest of the year. I don't think they'll be able to catch the Chiefs or the Pats, who are currently ahead of them. I think the Steelers are just a little bit more desperate. Honestly, having that tie and not getting that win at the Lions really kind of I think it actually hurts them compared to the rest of the AFC teams, just because of seeding and stuff like that. I think the Steelers had to win tonight, or had to win on Sunday. My apologies. And I think that they just needed it a little bit more. I mean, this was basically a win-or-go-home match for the Steelers, because if they lost that game, it's just a tough stretch down the road.
I still think it's over. I don't think Pittsburgh's
You don't think they're going to the playoffs?
No, I do not.
I don't know. I mean, their defense is still amazing. Pittsburgh seems to start to play better towards the end of the year. Most years. Now, last year was kind of crazy, but that was because those injuries just added up. They're obviously a lot more healthier this year. But no, I think the Steelers have a pretty decent chance, especially if Ben can limit the turnovers, be a game manager, not do any dumb plays, and just hand that ball off to Najee Harris.
Yeah, true.
I think they have, like I said, the recipe for success when you get later on in the season. That weather starts getting a little bit worse, that running and defense, and the Steelers have both of those. So I do think they have a shot. Now, the AFC is crazy, with how many teams are at that 7-5, 6-6 level. So it's going to be tough for them, but you know what? They got one of the best coaches in the league, and I'm not sure. They're right on the outside looking in right now, but I think they have a decent shot.
They're a good team. I mean, no, you know what? They're a bad team that's playing good. That's what I think.
Yeah. There's good bad teams and there's bad good teams. It's kind of however you want to feel about the Steelers. I do think they're a good team. I do think they're a good team that honestly just gets held down by their quarterback sometimes. But,
Yeah.
I was going to say this. With Big Ben announcing that it's going to be his last year for the Steelers, first of all.
Before he said that like 3 times before.
No, but this one's like, I take this one seriously
Yeah.
because he doesn't look good.
Yeah.
At least the last couple of years, he's been like playing well. This one, it's like, okay, I think even Big Ben knows he's kind of holding this team back. I will say, though, with how Minshew played this weekend,
Wow.
I would look for him to potentially be the Steelers starter next year.
That would be a really cool
I would love
move.
to see that.
That'd be a really, really cool move. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also, Deontay Johnson, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's been really awesome this year, obviously with not having Juju. So shout out to him for stepping up. He's only in his 3rd year. I think he has a bright future ahead of him as well.
Me too. The Najee 21 rushes for 71 yards, I believe.
Yeah.
5 catches as well. you
Yeah,
know.
not a bad day at the office. He's had better games, but the Ravens have a good rush defense. So,
Yeah.
not too crazy to see that.
And then Denver and Kansas City, right?
Yeah. This is your game of the week, or the Sunday night game of the week. The Chiefs. How you feeling about them? They've completely turned it around.
So it's like interesting because the Chiefs used to blow out teams, and that was tight games every week.
Yeah.
This was still kind of a tight game, in my opinion. The defense is winning games, and it's working, so it's different for the Chiefs. The defense has allowed 20 points or less since early October. So they went from like one of the worst historical defenses of all time, which always happens at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But that, and they just turned it around, and now they're one of the best defenses in the NFL. They had 1 sack, which isn't much, but they had 2 picks and 8 quarterback hits. Patrick Mahomes isn't doing much. He had 15 for 29, 140 yards, no touchdowns, an interception. He had a rushing touchdown, however. But better offense always beats better defense, so I think their offense needs to step up for them to win. See, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 14 carries and 54 yards. Travis Kelce only had 3 receptions for 27 yards, and Tyreek Hill 2 receptions for 22 yards. They need to step up as an offense to be a truly elite team, I think.
I agree with you as well. Their defense has been playing really well. Obviously, getting Clark and Jones back really solidified that defensive line, took a lot of pressure off their DBs. Obviously, with them not getting a lot of pressure on quarterbacks that first half of the season, Sorensen was just getting burnt every week in the back there. Taking the pressure off of those defensive backs has made a complete change in their defense. They've been playing really well, but I think you're right. That side of the ball for them is not strong enough to lean on it all the way to a championship. Mahomes has to play better. 15 of 29 is not very good. Now, let's give Denver credit. Their defense is really good.
Yeah.
Patrick Surtain Jr. is a really good cornerback. They have a great defensive line, and they've just played really well on that side of the ball since they got rid of Von Miller.
I disagree. I don't think their defensive line is too good, but they have a good secondary.
They have a good secondary.
But I know what you're saying.
They've been a pretty good defense since Von Miller left. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was because he was Venmo requesting people for that Halloween party that nobody wanted to go to. I don't know if you guys heard that story. But, it just kind of seemed like it kind of cleared up the locker room on that side of the ball. But, good win by Kansas City. They controlled the game for most. It was close, but it felt like they were in control of the game.
Yeah, they're now 8-4 in the 4th seed. They won 5 in a row right now.
Yeah, they're hot. And you know what? I'm not going to bet against them to not go to the Super Bowl. I mean, they're still right in that top tier of contenders in my eyes.
And then on the Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater, I've said over and over and over, he's so meh to me. And he might just be bad, to be honest. 22 for 40, 257 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and that 1 massive pick six by Sorensen, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Javonte Williams, I want to talk about too. He really went off. Melvin Gordon was injured and wasn't able to play in this game, so Javonte Williams got an opportunity, and he took advantage of that opportunity. He had 23 carries for 102 yards, and then 6 receptions for 76 yards and 1 touchdown. By the way, I'd like to thank you, Javonte. You got me in the fantasy playoffs, and I appreciate that, buddy. So thank you for that. But yeah, he played really well. But yeah, the defense couldn't do much in this game. 1 sack, 1 pick. The pick was important, but yeah. On Denver, what do you think Denver should do with Vic Fangio, and what about Teddy as a quarterback?
So Vic Fangio, I wish that Denver and him could come to an agreement where he could just be their defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Because, man,
He'd be a
one of
great
the
defensive
best
coordinator.
defensive coordinators I think we've ever had in this league. I mean, he's an amazing defensive coach. He just cannot figure it out on the offensive side of the ball. But, yeah, it might just be time for them to part ways. But, they're one of those teams that if they could just get a quarterback in there, I think it would make a world of difference. Another team that should look at Minshew in this offseason. But no, yeah, I think they just Teddy's a backup. Teddy's a backup in this league, and every time we've tried to see a team use a guy that should be a backup as their starter, it just never works out. It never works out, and you have to have a quarterback in this league. So maybe getting rid of Fangio is not what they want to do, but they have to get rid of Teddy. They have to make a change at quarterback. It's definitely not Drew Lock, and it's definitely not Bridgewater. I would look for them to maybe look at Minshew or look at the draft or something like that. But, yeah, they definitely have to make a change at quarterback because they do have a good wide receiver corps. I mean, Judy, Cortland Sutton, they have Noah Fant at tight end. They have weapons. Melvin Gordon at running back, Devontae Williams. They have weapons. And then it's just Teddy being, as you said, meh back there.
Yeah.
So that's priority number 1 for them this offseason. And I think that would change a lot of these wins and losses for them because this was a winnable game.
Yeah.
They were hanging in this game. I mean, you have a serviceable quarterback back there. If you would have had a good quarterback at the helm, they maybe come away with a win in this game. So, yeah, I think Teddy is definitely got to go for the Broncos. Sorry, Mr. Bridgewater.
He's literally a bridge quarterback.
He's a bridge quarterback.
On Kansas City, you said that you could see them going to the Super Bowl.
I do.
I think they might be AFC favorites. I understand the Patriots are playing well. I understand the Bills are there. I understand the Titans are there. But the Chiefs, if their offense steps up and their defense keeps playing like this, then they're unstoppable. Do you see them as AFC favorites? And, do you think they can turn their offense around this season?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have ultimate faith in Patrick Mahomes. I think any given Sunday he could go out there and drop 42 on whatever defense. I think Denver played really well, and, they actually sustained some drives that took a lot of, time off the clock. They didn't play very well today. Mahomes, obviously, very pedestrian game. But I'll just never count that guy out. I mean, as long as Hill, Kelsey, him are lining up on that side of the ball, I'll have faith in Kansas City. For right now, for me, it's the Patriots and the Chiefs probably in the AFC Championship game. So, yeah, for me, it still is the Chiefs, and it's going to be the Chiefs until proven it otherwise.
Well, I think that's all the games. I appreciate your input. As always, you're a welcome guest on the show. This is the last show of the semester. So we want to thank you guys for coming in and watching this show, and watching a show throughout the entire season as well. Drew killed it, as he always does, and I appreciate you guys just giving us views. Well, not giving us views, but actually just watching the content and appreciating the content. So thank you for that. We'll see what happens next season, next semester, I guess. We'll probably be back for the playoffs and explain playoff games, but we have winter break coming up, and we're ready for that. I'm ready for winter break.
I'm ready for winter break as well, too. I'm going to miss coming on this show. You're an awesome host. I always love coming on, talking ball. But, yeah, we'll see what next semester has in store.
So, again, thank you for coming in and watching this show. This has been the weekend wrap up with Trevor Junt, and we'll see you next semester.